I just did a workout that I've never done before. Experimenting with some heart rate zones. Zone 2, they're calling it. No, I know what I'm talking about here a little bit. I know that it's something that I haven't developed, which is very interesting to me. Trained a lot in a number of ways over the last 20 years, basically since I was 15 years old. But a lot of it was speed and power type stuff. Weightlifting, track, football. I'll overlay some stuff, some video of things, but basically like having the genetic makeup to be good at that stuff means that you're probably not going to be good on the other end, which is endurance, right? If someone can recruit that much muscle and that much power so quickly, it means that over a long period of time they're probably gonna have a harder time. And that's what I found, actually. So the couple of times that I have experimented with trying something really long without really training for it. 10 years ago, I ran a half marathon, and it was like mentally one of the hardest things that I've ever done. I naively thought that it's just running, like I can run fast, so it's just running slow. Just slow down and go for a long time. It's so different than that. I remember it so well. I went through 5K in about 23 minutes, it didn't feel hard, but I think around 6 or 7, my feet started to hurt a lot. By 11, they kind of felt mushy. And at that point, I was just struggling to hold on. And I remember at that point, I didn't have a time goal or anything. I think I wanted to go under 2 hours or something like that, but I remember at that point it was just finish without, like, don't break stride. And that became the hardest thing to do. And this is about 8 months after my dad got really sick, and he had kind of recovered a bit and stabilized, but he had lost some mobility in his lower legs. And I remember picturing my mom and dad running with me, and me, I was encouraging them to keep up, and that's kind of what kept me going. It's weird where your mind goes. And then just this past year, decided to do Around the Bay, the oldest road race in North America. It's 30K, and decided to do that on 3 training runs. So the 3 weeks leading up, I did an 8K run, a 12K run, and an 18. The 8 was great. The 12 was actually pretty solid too. I think I ran 12 in like 56 minutes or something, which is not bad. And then I put out pretty hard on it though. And then I ran 18, and that sucked. I was kind of back to that spot around 15K, and I think it was about an hour and a half in, or hour 20 minutes in, that I just felt like I had nothing left in my body. That again, my makeup is not made for repeated contraction over and over and over for hours. I'll turn around. And so I remember those last couple of kilometers just slogging through, like it was brutal. And then finishing, and I was close to Donut Monster in Hamilton, and all I could think of was just going there and getting donuts. So I've got half a dozen donuts. I think I ate 2 of them before I got home. And then the race was the next weekend, and to recap the race, I ran with two coaches from my gyms, Nick and Steph, and we went through, we had a plan. We wanted to go around 3 hours, so the pace money was right there. And 10K in an hour, 20K in 2 hours. And again, it was right around that time frame. We had taken some gels and blocks and stuff to help with that. But I learned another lesson. It was me, I broke down. They were okay. Whether or not they would have broken down if they kept going harder, but they didn't leave me behind, and I'm very thankful for that. But I basically started cramping, like my calves started getting right high on them, started getting really tight around 22K maybe. And then once I started cramping, it was like getting shot in the leg. And that happened, both calves, basically back and forth, I would say every 50 steps for the next hour. It was really bad, it was really painful. I wasn't prepared to quit. And then what happened, there's about 2 or 3K left, I think maybe 2K, it was pretty close to the end. I basically keeled over, like shuffling, like walking hunched over, grabbing my leg, and some guy says, "Hey, you need some salt." Okay, so he gave me some salt tabs, and then miraculously I didn't cramp anymore. Wish I had those earlier. So that was something I knew was going to be really important when I went into barrelman. So I found gels that were very high in sodium, and I took tabs and put them in my drink that were, sodium tabs, and that actually helped. When barrelman was done, I didn't run again. I signed up for that half marathon 2 weeks ago actually now, and that was my plan. Was I need very sort of regimented salt, and I had points in the race where I was going to take those, and that went actually really well. I ran 149, which super happy. Again, that was just residual training from barrelman, which again was just getting out on the bike and getting it out of my feet. So when I say I just did something different, I just ran. So when I turned on this video, I had just finished an 80-minute run, and try this again. iPhone storage full. So right before I turned on the camera, I had finished an 80-minute run, I think 45 seconds maybe before I turned on the camera. And you'll notice I wasn't out of breath or anything really. And I ran with a heart rate cap, basically. I was looking at my watch and I wanted to make sure my heart rate didn't get over 130. And it didn't. Maybe went 131 or 132 a couple times, but then I just relaxed and it kind of came back down. I'm not going to get into like what is heart rate zone training, zone 1, zone 2, Maffetone method. You might know something about that stuff, you might not. I'm not an expert, I'm experimenting with it for the first time. I understand it, I've just never developed it. So yeah, I basically ran with the intent of staying under 130 heart rate, and it's actually really hard to do. It's not fast. I think the first, it was about 11K, 80 minutes. I think the first bunch of them, I'll put a picture in here so you'll be able to see. The first bunch of them were around 6.5 minutes per kilometer, and then gradually that went up to around 7 minutes, and it stayed. I think the slowest might have been like 7:04. Now, that would be very different, I think, than back home. It's hot here. The sun's out. It's beating down on me along this path for the majority of it. So your body temperature just goes up, and that elevates your heart rate. But it's the whole idea is that this is developing your true aerobic system, and that right now I can run for 80 minutes under 130 heart rate at we'll call it 650 kilometers average. The idea is that as I develop this, I will be able to handle higher outputs at the same heart rate, right? So, I mean, that's training. It's just, this is different than developing strength or developing, high threshold tolerance, right? So, over time, it'll be cool actually to see what happens. I bet that under, conditions where it's a little bit cooler, I can probably handle under 6-minute kilometers. I don't think it'll take too long either at this heart rate, and that's cool. That's basically how you that's how you race these long triathlons. You can't do them in high heart rate, or you're gonna fail. Nobody can work at 160, 170, 180 heart rate for a long time. Not the duration that we need to, at least for these. So kind of the idea is like the longer you're gonna go, the more you need to develop this, and I am planning on going very long, 140.6 miles. Again, just the Ironman distance. I was talking to my parents actually on the phone last weekend, and I told them, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool, like you've done a lot of stuff." And it wasn't until I told them how far the distances were, they're like, "Okay, it's a marathon." They knew that. Even when I said 4-kilometer swim, my dad wasn't blown away by that, but I know he's done some biking. And when I said 180 kilometers on the bike, he was like, "Whoa, okay." And then he went from, do you know what you're getting into, or don't get yourself hurt? Like my mom was already like that. "Oh, Jay, don't get yourself hurt." It's funny to see him switch to that too. But yeah, I mean, if I was doing a sprint distance or Olympic distance, I wouldn't need to do quite as much of this. But going long, I need to. I haven't developed it, so it's gonna be fun. So I'll add some photos in. I'll sprinkle them throughout here so you can kind of see what I did today. Until next time, probably back in the cold soon.